I have an article here from TheGuardian.com. It's up on archive because The Guardian sucks. Go woke, go broke. Not true for brands, says global advertising study. Research shows ad campaigns that are more inclusive have a positive impact on profits, sales, and brand worth. Sounds like complete crap, but let's see what they got to say. The cringe factor can be high when an established brand suddenly aligns itself with up-to-date values. It did not appear to work well for Gillette, which suffered a public backlash 5 years ago to its toxic masculinity advert, or for Marks and Spencers when it brought out an LGBT rainbow-colored sandwich to mark Pride. But new academic research carried out for the advertising industry suggests that "Go woke, go broke," the snappy catchphrase devised by right-wing groups as a warning to brands, has got it all wrong. Number one, I usually hear either "get woke, go broke," or "go woke, get broke." But it's being pedantic. I suppose it doesn't really matter. Seems even clunky attempts to tune into newer, more tolerant values can give a product an advantage. Again, sounds like crap, but let's see what they got to say. On Monday, the findings of a global study from the Young Stereotype Alliance, a business initiative convened by UN Women, United Nations Women, will offer new evidence that advertising campaigns that are more inclusive have a positive impact on profit, sales, and brand worth. They go on to give a couple more examples of where it goes wrong, but they give no examples of when it goes right. It says here that an almost 3.5% boost to short-term sales and a more than 16% increase in the long term. Basically, they're massaging the numbers to make it seem what they want, essentially. Then they talk about, there's that fucking idiot Dylan Mulvaney talking about Bud Light. Burger King was forced to remove an ad that showed people trying to eat burgers with large chopsticks. Talking about the Kendall Jenner and Pepsi ad with the BLM shit, where she stopped a protest by handing the officer a can of Pepsi. It goes on and talks about other stuff. The one of the most famous early missteps in this direction was taken by Italian fashion brand Benetton, which shocked consumers in the 1990s with large billboards showing graphic scenes including child labor, armed conflict, and an electric chair. But anyway, here's the article basically wraps up there. So I hope you appreciate this article. Before you move on with that, here's one of the reasons why it's up on archive, the Guardian specifically. I'll get back to the article here in a minute. In the heat of a tumultuous presidential race with the threat of a more extreme second Trump presidency looming, the second Trump almost got assassinated again yesterday for the second time. This one wasn't as dangerous because he didn't get shot at this time, although there's debate about this and that. And I don't want to get into too much detail, but there was a man who was arrested, apparently had an AK-47, was going to try to assassinate President Trump. So, a more extreme second Trump presidency looming? I'm not seeing a bunch of right-wingers going out trying to shoot Kamala Harris, which they shouldn't, of course, because, violence ain't the answer. But anyway, that's why this is up on archive. But then going back to the article and talking about the UN women and stuff, let's see, who has just been... Saudi Arabia won an uncontested bid to lead a United Nations body dedicated to women's rights for the 2025 session, bringing condemnation from human rights groups that argue that the kingdom had an abysmal record on women's empowerment. They absolutely do have an abysmal record. So anything United Nations, UN, so the UN women's, UN women, I'm not going to pay attention to what you got to say because it's clear that you don't actually give a flying fuck about women. Because hell, they don't have many of the rights that women have here in the West and stuff, in Saudi Arabia and everything. But so basically, we know you're not serious from the beginning. So your little study here about wokeness and shit, yet again, it's another example of, like, for example, they had Finn in the sequel trilogy to Star Wars, but then in some countries, like China, for example, and stuff, they cut him out of the poster completely, replaced him with BB-8 because, hey, we're all about inclusivity and diversity and everything, except for when it comes to money. And it's the same kind of situation here, where they're like, well, hey, going woke is actually a great thing, except we're going to let Saudi Arabia head up the women's rights council. Like, huh? What the hell is going on there? It's complete horseshit. Basically, just massaging the numbers to try to make it seem like it's a big, like it's actually it's a net positive. When it's like that's complete horseshit, dude. All the examples you gave were when they go wrong. So like, what the hell? What are we talking about here? Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up here before I start rambling too much more. I'm already rambling a little bit, but it's just the first off, the Guardian. I'm not gonna trust anything they say because they're full of shit. The UN Women, the United Nations, and stuff. I'm not gonna trust anything they say. They're full of shit. Yet again, I mean, you got places like CNN and stuff talking, New York Times talking about, the condemnation from human rights groups and so on and so forth that the United Nations got. Because you're going to let a country in which women don't have many rights, anywhere near as many rights as they do here in the U.S. or various other places, you're going to let them lead a session about dedicated to women's rights. Okay, but then you'll turn right around and complain about the patriarchy, and complain about the misogyny, and how women don't have all their rights, blah blah blah, all this kind of stuff. They've been so mistreated here in the U.S. Something the math ain't math, and it doesn't compute. Anyway, like I said, I better wrap it up before I get before I ramble too much more. But I'll put all this stuff in the description box. You want to read it for yourself. Although I pretty much covered the entire article, and plus the Guardian just shit. So I mean. But if you want to read it, it's up on archive. I don't want to give them any clicks. Thank you very much for watching and have a good one.